Founder and CEO of Future You Exec Recruitment, live in our Sydney CBD studios. Simon, welcome to you.
Hi, Carson.
Do you call that previous month now an aberration, and that very much we are still in this twilight zone of part-time and underemployment, and so it goes and so it goes?
Well, you know, maybe it's a trend now, Carson. You know, it's interesting reflecting on the talent market that we look at, sort of $100 to $500,000. You know, in Sydney and Melbourne, and there's definitely more flexibility flying around in organisations creating those part-time opportunities for people. So it's an interesting trend. You know, I was at a meeting this morning with someone very senior in financial services who's actually doing a 3-day-a-week gig, and you know, I think there's lots of examples of that in the market starting to unfold. Which, if you're looking for more flexibility and you still want to play in the right organisations, it's there.
You talked there about, though, the very senior nature of that individual. Does that give them that same said bargaining power that few others can lay claim to? It's kind of, it's not necessarily the norm. It may be the exception, but is that widespread? How many other similar conversations have you had of that nature?
There's two things going on. So there's more confidence in senior executives to actually say to an organisation, look, I would like to work part-time. So I don't want to do the 5-day-a-week grind, but I'm still a very valuable contributor to your organisation. Will you consider it? And then the flip side of that is organisations starting to think outside the square in terms of how they maintain talent. Because what that permanent employment stat tells us is that there is some attrition going on, particularly in sectors like financial services at the moment, around the bottom end of performers. But those organisations are still very focused on keeping their best people, and part-time flexibility allows them to do that. So, you know, a couple of factors there coming together nicely.
Simon, given the particular segment you work in, but I would just love to get some sort of colour from you in regards to, you're getting a sense that companies are starting to invest in employment. In other words, are they starting to really plan for investment, and in doing so, they're seeking good quality executives to help them with that future investment? Yeah,
very much so. It's so we often refer to an employer's value proposition, and the way that they market that into Sydney or Melbourne. And so you know, some of our larger corporates are very, very good at that. So they're continuing to trim at the bottom end in terms of the underperformers, but they're also looking to be seen as an innovator in terms of how they attract and retain talent. So they're really trying to think outside the square and keep that together, because they know if they maintain that group of high performers, it makes a big difference to their business in the next 12 to 18 months. And, you know, everyone's chasing better profit results. You know, we're in the reporting season at the moment. Everyone's starting to think about what that could look like this time next year. So moving the jigsaw pieces around in the talent space is really, really key.
Simon, the broader economic stats are showing almost no movement on wages and an ongoing decline in hours worked. Is that trend towards part-time executives one of the drivers of that, or do you think there are other important factors in play?
Look, I think our base packages in the exec recruitment market have been pretty static now for the last 3 or 4 years. What we do see movement on is performance payments. So either in the short term, which is often over an annual period, or in the long term, you know, which is measured often over a 3 to 5 year outcome within an organisation. So there's been quite a shift in terms of those bonus payments, and moving it away from goals and objectives in that first 6 to 12 months to longer term outcomes. So there are a few moving parts there, but the base packages are fairly stable in Sydney and Melbourne. If we pull back internationally, we are actually a very expensive place to employ a professional person at the moment. And so organisations are aware of that as they compete on the international market for the right talent as well. So a few factors at play there, guys.
Simon, again, in that specific sector or segment that you're working in, is there any industry that you're seeing or finding that there's big demand for high calibre executives and recruitment, and yet there's a shortage of available candidates?
Digital. I mean, I've spoken a couple of times in the last 6 months around the digital space. You know, we are talent short in terms of the emergence of e-commerce and the digital platform. So if you take the United Kingdom, for example, that the market for digital talent is 10 times the size of it here. So often we're briefed on assignments where we're thinking internationally about pulling digital talent in. So we've got some really senior executives are strong in that space, and we've got some good people coming through at a graduate level, but there's a big chunk missing in the mid-market. So that's a pretty typical example. And property just continues to be a hot space. You know, so expertise in the property space and the infrastructure sector is still very, very strong.
You touched on the UK connection. What kind of a Brexit impact are you now seeing into the marketplace here, if any? How would you characterise it?
In the last 4 weeks, Carson, it's on the up. You know, a much higher level of inquiry out of London in terms of financial services, retail and FMCG. And it's a mixture. It's Australians and Kiwis that were very hard to tempt back into this market. You know, when we were searching and we had mandates maybe 12 to 18 months ago, so they're starting to go. Exchange rate's not what it was. Sydney seems to be a pretty hot talent market. You know, are there opportunities that I could consider back home? And then the second group are UK, you know, Brits that actually are going, maybe it's time to exit and make a migration to Australia on a longer term basis. So those two categories starting to increase in volume.
It's quite interesting you say that, Simon, because it does appear that we've seen in the past a number of periods where you do see migration change through the GFC, through the European banking crisis, that we saw a lot more inquiry into Australia out of Europe and the UK and far less shift of Australian expats over there. So, you know, net for us, population growth is going to benefit, and that's good news for our economy over time, I would have thought, particularly at that mid to senior level.
I think so, and there's a lot going on in Sydney. I mean, Sydney's a pretty frothy market at the moment on the talent front. So you know, lots of things unfolding in the SME space, often private equity backed. You know, and that's bringing some really good talent into the market and creating new opportunities. So it's a part of the cycle where it's a good time to be here.
There's one thing that wasn't pulled out by the Bureau of Stats today in its report, and that has been flagged by TD Securities, saying, look, based on past elections where this data series actually fell for the month of July, we would have expected about 15,000 jobs, temporary ones, to have been included, but they will just as soon go away. And if anything, we were underestimating it when we say 15,000. It could indeed be more. So there could be quite a correction pending in August. Would you be inclined to go along with that? Briefly, finally.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, we've talked before about the effect of this election. You know, I felt it was, you know, it had minimal impact on what we were seeing in the talent space. But I don't disagree with your comment there. You know, I think when we get to October, you know, we'll have a better sense of and be able to reflect on, you know, what's actually playing out there over this quarter. This is the headhunting season. You know, we're right in the thick of it in terms of the number of mandates that we would execute in a year. So this next 3 months gives us a pretty good feel for what's going on.
Just to clarify, are you in Sydney tonight? That does not look like a Sydney cityscape. Is that a new backdrop, is it?
Definitely in Sydney.
Very good to see. Very good to see. All right. Wonders never cease. The wonders of cityscapes that can change at the touch of a button. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good to be with you guys. Thank you.